right, everyone, welcome back. My name is Pritesh here with Kaizen Crypto, bringing you another video. So I hope you guys are all doing well. Thank you all so much for joining me here today. I'm really excited to be joined by Alessandro. He is one of the creators of Spacebudz, as well as the Stakepool operator for Berry Stakepool. So Alessandro, thanks so much for joining us today, man. How are you doing?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing well. Thank you.
Very cool. Very cool. Alessandro, Spacebudz, that's all the rage. As far as when these Cardano NFTs started happening, it was so incredible to see the user experience. You click the button, you send the ADA, and you see this little rocket ship kind of fly up on your computer screen. And then in your wallet, here pops a Spacebud. So I wanted to talk with you a little bit about that. Like what's the future plans for the project? What was the origin story behind Spacebudz?
Sure. So I just start with the origin, right? Yeah, basically everything started back in October of 2020. And I was actually not the one who came up with the idea, but it was my co-founder. So he was, and I didn't know him back then, but he was really into NFTs. So he had platforms on Ethereum, had big communities, and he wanted another platform. And he already called it Spacebudz. And I was developing for quite some time already smart contracts on Ethereum. So he knew I can build platforms like this. And he reached out to me and asked me if I want to build Spacebudz. But at this time, I was already more into Cardano, and I had my stake pool already running. And so I was like, I'm not sure if I want to do that right now. And the fees were already pretty high and all this kind of stuff. And a little bit later on, I suggested to him, what about if we try to do it on Cardano? So, of course, back then there was nothing out there, no metadata, no tokens, nothing. So documentation was also not available or something like this. But I was pretty sure that this will come very soon. And I told him, okay, let's do it on Cardano. And he was a little bit skeptical at first, but then a little bit later on, he agreed, and then we started out building, and this is where everything started. And yeah.
Okay. Wow. So you got your start kind of on Ethereum, and then you had your stake pool ready. So, you had your co-founder kind of talk with you about the idea. So then you guys finally decided on Cardano. So I guess coming from that standpoint, somebody who wants to get started with NFTs, they see what's going on with Ethereum, right? So like high gas prices and, just the expensiveness just to use the blockchain. I guess aside from that, like from a user standpoint, I guess what are some of the benefits that you see with Cardano and launching projects like Spacebudz on Cardano?
So for me, it was, of course, fees, as you said, but it's also like how Cardano is built. Like you have this clear separation between contracts and the tokens. So the tokens are native. So you really have them. And the fees you pay for to transact a token is like if you would send ADA, and you don't have this on Ethereum. If you send Ether, okay, the fees are low, but as soon as you send a token, it's pretty high. So you don't have the same thing on Ethereum. The tokens and Ether are separated. And this is what I really don't like about this system, and what I like a lot about Cardano. And everything is so seamless. You can like swap them, or not yet, but it will happen with smart contracts. So these tokens are really like very seamless. You can swap them around with contracts later on and do all this kind of stuff, which is pretty hard on Ethereum actually.
Yep. Yep. So what you had touched on there, so like native assets on Cardano with these tokens not requiring a smart contract, and they're, treated equally as ADA would be. Right now, one thing I've noticed is that, you still kind of have to attach a certain amount of ADA, like a minimum requirement in order to have the transaction get validated. But one thing I'm looking forward to is when, not of course with NFTs, but maybe fungible tokens, you can use those to potentially pay these transaction fees with those with the bevel fees. So it's a very interesting thing. I feel like we're still in the early days. I'm excited for smart contracts. And
Absolutely.
what you guys did, I feel like with your user experience, I think that's kind of what sets Spacebudz apart. A lot of people now, they're coming out with these NFT projects. They've got these delivery systems, but Spacebudz nailed it. So can you tell us a little bit? I mean, going into more of the technical stuff, you had mentioned, I saw your interview with Charles Hoskinson, and congratulations about that, by the way. That was incredible. I was
Thank
so
you.
excited for you. But, you had mentioned something as far as like the Black Frost API, or is it called that? Or like, what are some of the tools that you used in your website?
So yeah, I used Blockfrost, and so this was not directly in the website. It was more in the back where like the real token minting happened. This was like the crucial thing, and this one had to be very stable. But yeah, I used Blockfrost, and I used another library which I built on my own, which basically wraps the Cardano CLI into JavaScript, which allowed me to do server stuff and Cardano stuff very seamless, everything in JavaScript. So I could build up the stuff pretty fast. And yeah, so this is how I did it in the back. But for me, it was about when I wanted to make this token launch, I had two options. Or for me, it was like, okay, either I wait for smart contracts or I try to simulate the idea of a contract. Because, well, I had before developing contracts on Ethereum. So I wanted to have this behavior of, okay, I send something and you get something back. If I can't achieve it, I don't do it. So, but so this was my mission. And then I came up with this idea of, okay, I can't send real information yet, except like, well, like I can't say if I make this transaction, give me this token. This is something you can with contracts. So I had to do this with this clever way of, okay, I encode this message inside of the amount of ADA you send, and then my server recognized that, and then it's minted the token. And yeah.
I see. I see. Well, it worked seamlessly. It was fantastic. So what you had was the 10,000 Spacebudz. You had the different price tiers. So 1 through 1,000 were 10 ADA. 1,001 to 2,000 was 20 ADA, and so on and so forth. So you had I guess it was like a random generator. So a specific amount of ADA you would send to the wallet address that's generated, and that's what would trigger the transaction. So yes, it was incredible what you did. So Spacebudz, as far as what is to come with the project, can you tell us a little bit more about some of the things that you're working on going forward?
Yeah, so currently I'm working on the Pluto's contract, more or less. And this was already part of the whole thing. So I wanted to like create these NFTs and then create a marketplace where people could trade them. And the idea is actually simple in the concept itself, but of course, doing it on Cardano initially as the first one, of course, it requires pioneering, and there's nothing out there. So it's kind of hard initially, even though the idea is simple. But yeah, I'm working right now on the Pluto's contract already, and I'm looking forward now to the test, and I hope it's coming out very soon.
Very nice. Very nice. Alessandro, I wanted to ask you about one of the Cardano improvement proposals that you had submitted. Talking about some of these metadata standards for these NFTs. So can you tell us a little bit about the 721 metadata standard that you'd come out with for your Cardano improvement proposal?
Sure, yeah. So the idea behind this contract, behind this metadata standard was, or the inspiration behind it was coming from Ethereum, actually. So as I said, I've been developing stuff there, and also this so-called ERC 721 contract. And this contract is the NFT standard on Ethereum. And what you have there is you have the tokens, and the tokens have IDs. And then you have inside of this contract a function where you can insert the ID, and then it gives you back the metadata. So you have this very unique link which can't be broken. And I wanted to replicate this idea basically on Cardano. But as I mentioned, the tokens are native, and that you don't have the smart contract thing inside of the tokens. You can't attach anything. The token itself is just this policy and the name, and that's it. And then I had to come up with a different solution to create this link. And what I did is basically what you can do on Cardano is you can append metadata to a transaction. And with this logic or idea, I could then replicate this idea because I basically appended the metadata to the mint transaction. No one else except the policy owner can do that. And then you have this link which can't be broken, and you can always verify what your properties are behind your NFT actually.
I see. I see. Okay. So something that comes to my mind that would make this significant is, let's say somebody decides, I mean, just to use Spacebudz as an example, let's say somebody takes a picture of a Spacebudz and they decide to mint it as an NFT. You know, all of a sudden you've got a real Spacebud and you've got a fake Spacebud, so like a clone. So this policy ID is unique to this token, and the policy ID, like you said, is unique to a specific wallet which mints the token.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's something that I'm learning a lot about because, you know, there's a lot of technical things that are involved with these tokens. So what you did with your Cardano improvement proposal, you know, it would really be nice to see some type of standard across all these different non-fungible tokens. I think it's going to make, especially when we do see smart contracts and the functionality with these applications, it's going to make things a little bit more seamless to kind of transact and trade these non-fungible tokens. So yeah, it's a very interesting thing that you did there, man. I think that we're truly pioneers in this. And I think, you know, some of the ideas that you're putting out there is just amazing to see.
Thank you.
Now, as far as what you're doing with your stake pool, so Alessandro, let's talk a little bit about that. You know, as far as running on single board computers, I'm really interested in that. You know, earlier on the channel, we had kind of gotten involved with the incentivized testnet by running on one of those little Rock Pies. So amazing to see what you're doing with Berry Stakepool. So you're actually running on a Raspberry Pi. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. Yeah. So I started this thing back in, when was it? June? June. So shortly before the mainnet. This is where I really got into or decided to run a stake pool. But for me, it was clear I wanted to do this like straight away on these devices because I knew, okay, proof of stake is going away completely from this, from this high computation you need. So you don't need it at all. And I was like, okay, let's try it on a Raspberry Pi. And initially, it was not very good because the support was not there yet. But later on, IoG was coming in, and then they created like custom nodes for ARM devices, and then it was actually running pretty well. And I'm still running it, and even though the transaction count increased a lot and everything, it runs pretty well. And I think CPU usage is around 3-4%, so it's very low, and yeah, runs pretty good.
That's so cool. That's so cool. Yeah, you know, the guide that you put out there on your GitHub, I followed along with that guide and I managed to get a relay on a Raspberry Pi. I was like, wow, this is too cool. And you know what they've done with the Cardano node, you know, just to touch on the point you made, it just sips on CPU. You know, I think with a lot of these node configurations, if you have about 8 gigabytes of memory, I feel like that's kind of like their minimum spec requirement. But I feel like if you can get that on a Raspberry Pi, you know, it's totally possible.
Yes. So maybe with Plutus and Alonso, it could be maybe a little bit harder, not from a CPU perspective, but from RAM. And unfortunately, the Raspberry Pi just goes up to 8 gigabyte. But I could see a 16 gigabyte version as well. Maybe this year, I don't know, but it will happen very soon. But for example, we have alternatives like the Apple Mac Mini M1.
Oh, yeah.
yeah, the series with these new ARM chips.
Yeah.
And I think someone in the group is testing it already, and it consumes like 10 watts, a little bit more than the Raspberry Pi,
Wow.
but it's very low. And this one has 16 gigabyte of RAM, so this is pretty cool.
Wow. Yeah, that is absolutely. So, for the people who might be interested, definitely, if it's okay, I would love to leave all of your links down in the description. So if you are an enthusiast, if you want to check out Alessandro's GitHub to get that information, if you are to tinker around with your single board computers, and if you want to spin up a Cardano node, would be great if we were able to provide that link.
Sure, of course.
Nice, nice. And I wanted to also kind of touch on, some of the things that you're excited about, just kind of changing gears a little bit. Because I know we're expecting Alonzo coming up pretty soon. That's all the talk, smart contracts. You are actually involved in the Plutus Pioneers program. So maybe tell us a little bit about how that is going for you.
Yeah, so actually it's pretty good. So the first example that was coming out from Lars, so he was putting out a auction contract. And this one was already helping me a lot with the ideas I have for my marketplace. And so he's putting out once a week a tutorial and yeah, like a guide on new topics and a new smart contract, and it's helping a lot. So it's very cool actually.
Nice. Yeah, some of the ideas that we're seeing coming out. I know Dexes, all sorts of DeFi projects, all that kind of stuff. Going to the topic of Spacebudz again. So like with these smart contracts, I guess people who hold these Spacebudz, what do you foresee within your project? I mean, are you looking for a marketplace where people can kind of buy, sell, trade? Like what are the plans there with smart contracts and how that involves Spacebudz?
Yeah, so I want to build one smart contract that allows all of this. So I want to like really like trading. So you can open a position and offer a space bet, or you can offer a position and bid on a space bet. So you have both sides, and then whenever one side agrees, okay, I'm gonna sell it now for this price, or I'm gonna buy this one, and yeah, then both parties make their swap. And this is basically a simple marketplace, but this is how it works.
Yeah, it's like it's amazing to see. I feel like people who understand the concept behind these NFTs and they really kind of get involved with the project and they can resonate with the idea. I saw one of these, Alessandro, I'm sure you probably heard of it too, but one of these dinos, there's only ever 8 of these dinos, and there were some offers that just blew my mind. I mean, just what the valuations are for these tokens, especially if they're super rare. Um, so things like what you're talking about, where you can buy and sell, and one thing that I'm really looking forward to is, let's say, if you wanted to use your NFT as a form of collateral, if you wanted to draw capital against it, but you don't want to sell it necessarily, things like that. It's like, wow, the sky is really the limit with a lot of
Yeah.
these ideas.
Yeah, so maybe something like this I can implement later on. So for now, I want to focus very on the basic, but then I want to extend later on. So yeah, as you said, the sky's the limit. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Alessandro, it was incredible to get a chance to talk with you more about Spacebudz. I wanted to just go ahead and leave the floor open up to you if you had any final remarks as to what you're excited about with Cardano, some things that you're looking forward to with Spacebudz, and also where can people go to find out more about what you're trying to do?
Yeah, so I'm very excited about the next few months, and I really want to get Spacebudz to the next level. I want to be again like the first. I put out the first NFTs, and now I want to put out the first marketplace. So this is the goal, and I'm very excited about that one. And yeah, so Spacebudz you can find on spacebudz.io, and our Twitter is Spacebudz NFT. We have Telegram, we have Discord, and yeah, so for my pool, my Raspberry Pi pool, very, you can find me on pipool.online, and yeah, that's basically it.
Awesome. Awesome. Alessandro, I have one final question for you. I hope you don't mind me asking. Do you hold a Dino Spacebud?
I don't, but my
What?
co-founder does. But we actually we had no Dino, so we didn't put any Dino out for us. So my co-founder bought it actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Money well spent.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Well, guys, I will be sure to leave all those links that we had mentioned down in the description below. It's so cool to see all the amazing projects coming out on Cardano. And Alessandro, thank you again so much for taking the time. It was really a pleasure to get a chance to finally get a chance to talk with you.
Thank you so much. It was great to be here.
Yes, absolutely. All right, Alessandro, thank you so much, man. Take care.
Bye.